All right.
Now we just started.
Now we just
start. We didn't decide
We didn't
go
decide.
first.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Shane.
This is our movie podcast where we talk about movies that we enjoy.
Yep.
Yeah.
We are each episode, we each pick one movie, and at the end of the episode, we're going to pick a random topic out of our magical cup.
Very advanced technology.
And we will pick the 2 movies for the next episode.
And that way y'all get to follow along. Watch movies with us. Chat about them with us.
Exactly. So this week we're doing Adaptation, which is, well, the topic is Nicolas Cage movies. Obviously we couldn't do our genre generator little cup to make our topic, but we decided Nick Cage movies made sense for episode 1. I did Adaptation.
And I picked Raising Arizona. Classic.
So honestly 2 of his best
Oh my god.
movies. I think we
have a lot to
did
talk
good.
about.
Yes.
Fantastic movie.
But before we get into the goods,
yeah.
maybe we'll just talk about what we've seen recently.
Yeah. I'm just going to pull up my letterbox because my memory is not good.
Well, the last thing I watched was last night. Obviously, it's the end of September. We're getting to Halloween season. I watched Immaculate on Hulu, and it was honestly pretty good.
I liked it. Sydney Sweeney.
She wasn't very believable as a nun, to be honest.
I think she's a terrible actress. I'm gonna be honest.
I don't know. This might be the first time I've seen her act in anything.
I saw, what was that rom-com she did recently with
Glenn Powell.
Yeah, I mean he's great.
I did not see that. I thought it looked bad.
Oh, it was.
Yeah,
it was terrible.
It was called Anyone But You.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't see that one.
See, so I saw Immaculate in theaters. I thought it was really good. I thought the first half was much worse than the second half. Both in acting, oddly, but also just the movie.
Yeah, I could see that. The first half was definitely just okay,
Yeah.
I think. I liked the cinematography. I liked that they actually shot it in Italy. And the set and everything was really cool. But then once they actually got into the business, and no spoil, we're not going to spoil any of these movies, but we are going to spoil Adaptation and Raising Arizona later on.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Raising Arizona or Adaptation, you should probably watch those before. Yeah, we have a lot to say about
They're great. They're worth watching, so yeah.
Yeah.
But Immaculate, overall, enjoyed it.
Yeah. The last one I saw was also yesterday. I remember that. Which was Never Let Go. I just went to the theaters to see that.
What is that? I don't even know if I know what that is.
This new...
is it Halle Berry?
It is.
Okay,
it's Halle Berry.
That's a very forgettable title.
It's a terrible title.
Never Let Go. It could be anything.
It could be anything. And it was, I would say, it was a very average movie. I can't say that it was bad, but I also can't say it was like memorable. I'm gonna forget about this movie. I already forgot about it, to be honest. So not the best movie, but
you saw it with the AMC pass, so it was free.
That's right.
There you go. So was it worth watching for free? Maybe.
Yeah, no, it's worth. It's short, I think. It's not too long.
That was the thing about Immaculate.
Yeah.
It was. Well, snapping is probably not good for a podcast, but
whatever. You're fine.
But it was just the pace was rapid, and it was honestly fast to the point where it could have been a little bit longer, which is rare.
It is, yeah.
And it was like 89 minutes with like 8 minutes of credits.
Yeah.
So I was like, damn, like I honestly could have. It could have been longer, which is probably good for a movie to leave you wanting more rather than like, hey, they could have cut out 15 minutes, you know?
Yeah. Never Let Go was an hour. No, sorry. It was 100 minutes. So it was over my
hour 40.
It was over that 90-minute mark. And I would say it still felt pretty short, which is good.
Yeah.
I mean, an hour and 40 minutes is pretty short, so.
Yeah.
But some other stuff I watched recently. I also watched the new Speak No Evil.
Oh yeah, the remake. Yep.
That's the remake. So I watched the Danish one a while back.
How was it? Was the remake worth it? Was it kind of?
If you've seen the original, I would say it's still worth watching the remake. And if you haven't seen it, you should probably watch the original first. But they're both good.
Good.
The remake is clearly more American.
Right.
The ending, the lead up to the ending, really the first like 2 acts are like very similar. Not quite shot by shot, but it's pretty close. And then the final act takes a very American turn.
They tone it down a little bit. It's a little less.
I don't want to say too much,
Okay, all right,
but
all right. I thought the movie
Yeah.
looked interesting, but I haven't seen the original, so I
Mm-hmm.
didn't really feel the need to rush out and see it.
Yeah.
And also, for the listeners, I just got a dog recently, so I haven't been able to go out to the theater as much, having a
Yeah.
puppy around.
And I live literally across the street from a theater, so I have a
Yeah.
pass to it, and I watch way too many movies there.
Yeah. You got there's a theater right down the street from us too. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's easy to stream things online.
Which
But
is nice.
Some other good things I watched recently. I watched Rebel Ridge on Netflix. That was really good.
Looked good. I haven't seen
Really-
that yet.
That is totally worth watching. And also Saint Maud. I watched that, caught up with that. I watched Love Lies Bleeding, which is Rose Glass's second movie, and I loved that.
Mm-hmm.
So then I went back and caught up with Saint Maud, and that was really good. I thought it was almost like a British lady with version of Taxi Driver.
Ah,
Like
that's
a horror
cool.
version of Taxi Driver.
It is on my list only because the same, like you said, I saw Love Lies Bleeding and threw it on my list, but haven't found the time to see it. Was it streaming somewhere?
I think it's on Amazon.
Ooh.
Saint Maud is on
Nice.
Amazon.
Yeah. Love Lies Bleeding is probably not streaming anywhere yet.
No, it's on Max. That's where I
Oh.
watched it. I
Oh,
watched
nice.
it on Max. Yep.
I saw it in theaters.
I don't watch anything in theaters nowadays. It's all streaming. Just kidding. I wish I saw it in theaters. It was pretty awesome. The
It was
ending of Love Lies
fantastic.
Bleeding, I think, would be better to see in theaters.
Yeah.
So I do wish I saw it in theaters, but yeah, what are you gonna do?
Well, those are some of our movies that we saw recently, but we're mostly here to talk about two movies.
Also, crucial part of this
yeah.
episode. This episode's official title is AdaptArizona.
AdaptArizona, which we totally will say the same way every time.
AdaptArizona
AdaptArizona.
for adaptation. So therefore, we'll do adaptation first.
Yes.
Also, well, yeah. Anyway,
An adaptation. Shane picked this one, so can you tell us a little bit about what the movie's about?
yeah. So Adaptation is a movie directed by Spike Jonze and written by Charlie Kaufman. And the movie's about Charlie Kaufman writing the movie. And
Genius.
yeah, so it's technically an adaptation of a book by Susan Orlean called The Orchid Thief.
Yes.
And Charlie Kaufman in real life was trying to adapt it, and he was clearly struggling, and he kind of wrote himself into the movie. And then in the movie, you see himself writing himself into the movie, and then eventually he also created a fake twin brother for him to have, sort of an alter ego called Donald. So Charlie is trying to write this adaptation of The Orchid Thief at the same time as Donald is kind of writing his Hollywood psychological thriller, like Seven ripoff kind of a thing, and he's very a little bit more generic, a little bit more bro-y, but he's also a happier guy. Charlie is miserable, and Donald is living his best life.
I'm concerned for Charlie.
Well, by the end of the movie, it's a kind of heartwarming, actually. I thought this is one of his most heartwarming and positive movies. If you watch his other movies, you think it's a shock the guy's alive. Let's be real. I mean, Jesus Christ. But yeah, so Meryl Streep plays Susan Orlean, and we see her and Chris Cooper, who plays John, and we're seeing them sort of as she's interviewing him and writing the book, and we're cutting between time, and I guess that's sort of a description of the movie. I kind of was all over the place.
That was good. I thought it was really interesting. Although can I start with a weird, like I went down this weird rabbit hole before I even watched the movie.
Yeah.
This is my first time watching it, and I went down this weird rabbit hole where I noticed that Spike Jonze was at one point married to Sofia Coppola.
Yes.
Which I was like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Is that possibly why Nick Cage was in this movie?
Oh, yeah.
Because Nick Cage
Family connection.
is the cousin. Nick Cage's family name, of course, is Nicholas Kim Coppola.
Yes. Yeah.
And
there's a lot of secret Coppolas. There's Jason Schwartzman is a secret Coppola.
secret Coppola. So
Well, you'd never think. Jason
Yeah.
Schwartzman doesn't sound like a Coppola, but he is.
it's like that game Secret Hitler, but someone's a secret Coppola.
Which one's worse? The world may never know.
But anyways, and I couldn't find a definitive answer. Although it doesn't really seem like that's why he was in this movie, because They, well, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily why he was in the movie. Although interestingly, they also got divorced the year after this movie came out.
And actually, Adaptation came out in 2002, and in 2003, Sofia Coppola made Lost in Translation, which is kind of about her divorce with Spike Jonze.
Oh, God.
And then in 2013, Spike Jonze made Her, which is inspired by also that relationship, apparently, allegedly. I don't know.
Wow.
So, yeah.
The craziest, like, family drama movie series here. I didn't know there was a whole universe behind this until watching it.
And then somehow it all culminated in Megalopolis this year, which I'm excited to see. It looks insane.
Yes. It looks epic, I think is the word.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
I'll definitely see that.
So
Although it's going to be long.
Yeah, but that's what you go to the IMAX for, brother. A nice, long movie.
Yeah. I did see Madam Web in IMAX.
Right.
That felt...
Anyway, let's get back to Adaptation. I mean, come on. What are we doing here? So, yeah.
Yeah, one more thing to start with is I wrote down some of the scores that Adaptation has.
Oh, okay.
I was intrigued. It has 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, 85% audience score, 7.7 out of 10 on IMDb, 4.1 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
Right.
These are great.
Yeah.
Great scores. Altogether, I tried to average that all out of 10. And I found the average here to be 8.35 out of 10, which is really high.
That is high.
Really high.
Yeah, it's a pretty well-regarded movie.
Amazing.
I think it's definitely made for sort of that audience of people who are really into movies.
Yeah.
I think if some average moviegoers might just not be into it, but then that's kind of the whole idea of the movie is by the end they get, sort of the third act that an general audience would like.
That's true.
And it actually works like really well.
Should I check on that?
I think my camera... So this is the thing. This is our first episode. We don't know what we're doing. We're recording the audio. We have 2 cameras going. I think mine just turned off. I don't know what happened.
Whatever.
But we have a second one going.
We do have a second.
And we could just rely on that.
I think we're good.
And honestly, if they both die, the YouTube might just be audio for the second half. And you know what? They'll be fine.
I think the point of this is a podcast anyways.
Yeah, exactly. It's an audio thing. And, it's episode 1.
Yeah.
We'll work out the kinks as we go.
We decide I'm not going to check on that, so let's continue.
No, don't check on it. Fuck it. We'll just keep going. But yeah, so one of my favorite scenes actually in Adaptation is the scene when they're on set, the set of Being John Malkovich, which Being John Malkovich is one of my favorite movies, and you see sort of the behind the scenes of Floor 7.5 and John Cusack and God, what's her name? Whatever.
Yes.
The lady from Jesus Christ. She's really good in the movie. She plays herself in Adaptation, but you see them on the set, and you see Nicolas Cage as Charlie Kaufman also on set, and Donald visits, and I like that scene, just seeing him behind the scenes. And you see Malkovich too later on when they're filming that dream sequence.
That's right.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. That was a fun thing. One of my favorite parts of the movie kind of gets revealed a little bit when Donald visits the set, because Donald is just so vastly different than Charlie.
Yeah.
So when he goes to the set, when Charlie's at the set, when you see him at the very, very beginning on set, and then when you see him when Donald's getting there too, he's like in a corner, kind of looks like a little gremlin just hanging out in the corner, like weird, anxious, neurotic in the corner, right?
Yeah.
And meanwhile, like when Donald's there, he's like chatting away with some lady, laughing, giggling, whatever, and then he walks over. And Charlie, of course, his first instinct is like, why are you talking to people?
Yeah.
And Donald's like, no, she's nice, whatever, right? Who I think, if I remember right, ends up...
Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Yes, and so they end up, of course, dating. I forgot if that was when he met her or not.
Yeah,
that's her. So, but that like stark difference between the two of them is really funny to me.
Yeah.
It feels like, at many times, like Donald is supposed to be like the ideal, maybe the person that Charlie wants to be or wanted to be.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking, where the real Charlie Kaufman sort of wrote this character of Donald, and by the end of the movie, he sort of synthesizes sort of the Charlie character and the Donald character into one. And
Right.
maybe that's sort of a better version of himself by the end of, the scene in the swamp, and they have, they sort of reconcile, and, they love each other as brothers, and...
Well, yes, and Donald dies.
Donald does get murdered.
Donald
gets killed by, he gets shot by... Meryl Streep, right?
Yeah, Meryl Streep shoots him.
And then they crash into a car,
Which
and he
is,
goes
of course,
flying through the window.
flies through.
Yeah.
Which, of course, Meryl Streep in the movie is like the writer, the author of The Orchid Thief. So she's like this author. Actually, I think Susan Orlean, when I was reading a little bit about this, she was like pretty against the movie when she first read the script.
I don't blame her.
But was persuaded into it. So I get the feeling that she probably did not actually kill someone.
I hope so. I don't think so. I thought that was also hilarious. That sort of when there's that turn, Charlie goes to the auditorium, the speaking engagement for Robert McKee, and he talks to him afterwards, and sort of he realizes that his characters need to change, and he needs to sort of follow a bit of a Hollywood script to finish this adaptation.
And then what happens?
And then right after that, it's like, okay, the orchids are actually a drug, and Susan Orlean is actually in love with John.
Yeah.
And they go down, and she's kind of a crazy drug addict murderer kind of by the end.
Yeah.
And I don't blame Susan Orlean for being like, maybe this is not the best depiction of me.
Yeah. Which, and it was funny when that transition happens. I think, like, one of the next scenes, right, he invites Donald to New York, and he says, I think you might be able to help me with this or something, right? Or I forget why he invites him, and then Donald's, like, first instinct is to, like, do this, like, undercover op where he goes in as Charlie to talk to Susan, and then they spy on her through the, like, across skylines, right, with the binoculars. And it's like a little tiny spy, like, drama for a hot moment. And then, of course, they follow her to
Miami,
Florida, wherever it is. And all that crazy crap happens. I wrote a note down, by the way. You mentioned Robert McKee. I think this was on the IMDb trivia, so who knows if this is true. But I think Michael Caine was in the running for that role.
Oh,
and
Michael Caine.
I just want to say that I wish...
Michael Caine, mate!
I would have loved it to hear Michael Caine do that yelling part. So Charlie Kaufman asked the question about doing, what was his question? Something about the movie without having progression in the characters.
Like people don't change, nothing happens in life.
Right.
That's not realistic. And then Robert McKee basically
goes
screams
off.
at him.
Yeah. Which is funny. And then when he leaves and Charlie sees him outside, and he goes, "I'm the person that you yelled at inside." And then Robert McKee has to go, "You have to be more specific," which was pretty funny.
I was trying to look up the actor who played Robert McKee.
Yeah.
I recognized him, but I couldn't remember his name. Hold on.
He did well, but Michael Caine is a particularly... I mean, that screaming section would have been amazing.
Yes. Also, Catherine Keener is the name of the actress who I was trying to think of earlier, and I couldn't. And she's great, and she plays herself in this, and she's very good. Why am I having so much trouble? Because he's not on Letterboxd, I don't think.
Oh, weird.
Letterboxd just screwed me a little bit.
This
is where you got to go back to the old school IMDb.
Old school. I know.
This is the right way to do it, I guess.
Yeah.
Brian Cox. All that. His name is Brian Cox.
I was thinking that it was... for some reason in my head, I had some really basic name going. Like, I was thinking, like, Tom or something.
John Smith.
Which probably doesn't help that I have Tom Hanks written down on here.
Tom Hanks?
Who almost played the twins.
Really?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
That would have been different.
That would have been different.
Wow. I think that would have been worse.
It would have been worse. I think
he would not have been as good as at being the neurotic Charlie character.
No. I think Tom Hanks isn't really made for that role. Tom Hanks is made for the Donald role. Perhaps,
more gregarious, more
self.
likable.
Yeah.
That's his sort of persona.
Yeah. Love Tom Hanks. In movies. I don't really know him. I think...
Never heard of him. I love Chet, personally.
Yeah, I did. I know about that.
I will say, I think the topic is Nicolas Cage for this week.
Yes.
And this might be his best performance, I think. I think it's really remarkable the way he distinguishes each character.
Yeah.
Like, they look the same. They don't give him, like, a big birthmark or a crazy outfit or glasses or a beard. Like, it's basically the same haircut, same look, and it's all in his mannerisms and just his acting. And it's always clear when he's Charlie and when he's Donald.
Yeah.
And I guess that's also a testament to the direction, and everything is very clear in the movie. But also his acting, I think it's pretty remarkable to play both those characters so well.
He did fantastic. Actually, the word I used in my notes is fantastic. I wrote Cage's performances with an apostrophe or parentheses there were fantastic. I think you hit it spot on, right? He did such a good job portraying two totally different characters.
Yeah.
And with like you said, even in their like attire and stuff, they looked so similar.
Yeah.
But when he was Donald, he was always smiling. He was always energetic and enthusiastic. He kind of full of life, kind of like full of life, right? But then Charlie is, of course, kind of beaten to shit. He's like, I mean, in a way, you can think
he's
that
empty of life.
Yeah, he's empty of life. He's been working for too long, maybe. I don't know what it is, but which is funny when Donald early in the movie decides he wants to be a Hollywood writer, and is like super enthusiastic and excited about it. Goes to the writers' conference or retreat or whatever it is, and comes back and Charlie's of course super cynical and pessimistic and is like, those things are terrible. Nobody ever learns anything from those. He even says something like, don't call it there's some line where he says like, don't call it a trade or something. I forget, but
don't call it the industry. Maybe
the industry. That's it.
The industry doesn't like that because it's all an art form, and all Hollywood is bullshit.
Yeah. And so there's that like totally different perspective where Donald almost feels like a refreshed version, right? Like if Charlie maybe took some of that orchid drug.
Yeah, Charlie could use some of that shit. I'll tell you what, he could find some appreciation in the dial tone in the phone. Also, Meryl Streep, we haven't talked much about that character. It's kind of difficult to talk about the sort of different stories and the way it all weaves together in the movie, but she's also really good, I think, playing sort of this New York elite sort of journalist who's going down to Florida, and she's sort of judgmental of John at first, especially her friends when they have that dinner party scene, and they're really just making fun of him. And I think she feels bad about it, but
you can kind of see that.
But I think when she goes down, she is sort of judging him and thinking negatively of him, because he doesn't have his teeth. His van smells. She's writing notes about that.
Yes.
And then by the end, she does, well, obviously within the story, she falls in love with him.
Yeah.
But even disregarding the third act, I think she does come to have more of an appreciation for the Chris Cooper character.
Yeah,
but
I agree. Yeah, LaRoche, John LaRoche.
I think John LaRoche or something like that.
Who like I remember she's talking to him in the beginning. They're like going towards. They're in the van going somewhere. Maybe it was to that like. They might have been going to the swamp. I don't remember, but and she's talking to him, and he's mentioning something about how he has all these awards, and he would have been this big time botanist or whatever, right? And conservationist or whatever, and is like trying to do stuff smaller for a little while or something. And she clearly doesn't believe him, and she writes down like delusions of grandeur.
Yes,
and then she sees kind of his skill and personality and who he really is a little bit.
And he's kind of a strange character.
He's real
like
weird.
He doesn't get. I feel like we didn't get into his psychology very much.
Yeah,
like he's kind of just a side character. I kind of wish maybe I just missed it. I was just too focused on the Charlie Kaufman stuff, but I feel like we don't see why he's doing everything. It just sort of, he has that explanation of he used to love whatever it was, what was it, fish or something like that? And he did everything with fish, and then by the time he was done, he was like, all right, I'm done with fish.
Yeah.
Whatever. And he just moved on to flowers, and it's just like an interest of his, but I kind of wish we got a little bit more of his character.
Yeah, and actually that's an interesting point, because the movie is an adaptation of a book that, from my understanding, the book doesn't have anything about Susan Orlean. She doesn't write herself into the book.
Right.
So the adaptation about a book about essentially this John LaRoche has much less to do with John LaRoche at all than it does to do with Susan Orlean or even Charlie Kaufman, for that.
Yeah, in theory, John LaRoche is like the main character of the book, but then he's like the fourth lead in this.
Yeah, which I mean, and that's maybe even generous, right? I think you might have to count Nick Cage twice.
Well, Nick Cage twice, and then Meryl Streep.
Oh yeah, and then him.
Then maybe him fourth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Chris Cooper, I think he won an Oscar for this,
did.
Right? Yeah, for supporting.
I was gonna write down like a little bit about awards, but this movie was so well awarded and esteemed and stuff. I mean, nominations, awards. It seemed like the Wikipedia entry for awards for this thing was like just
a mile long.
Yeah. But yeah, I think he did win the Oscar for it, right? So
yeah, he won supporting actor, which I see. He definitely falls into the role. Like he's full commitment to the bit.
And the fake tooth prosthetics the whole time.
Yeah, very believable. And he gets killed by an alligator pretty well.
Did you know that was originally going to be it was supposed to be a cryptid that kills him.
A cryptid?
That's right. Like a make-believe swamp monster.
Really?
Yeah, originally that was what Charlie Kaufman wanted to do, but it was Robert McKee, I think, who said...
Oh, so he actually talked to the real Robert McKee about this?
I think so. It's either him or the person that played him in the movie that said...
Brian Cox, yeah.
I want to be involved in the movie, but not a bad movie, or something. It might have been... I think it was Robert McKee that said, you can put me in the movie, but you can't put me in a bad movie.
Wow.
So he said no to the cryptid. It's either that or Brian Cox said, I'll be in the movie, but not a bad movie.
Wow.
Which I think... Imagine if this movie had Tom Hanks as the twins, Michael Caine as Robert McKee, and a cryptid at the end.
That would be pretty different.
That'd be very different.
That'd be very different. But you know what? I bet it would still work. It's still got the Charlie Kaufman, Spike Jonze flavor.
And the cryptid killing the guy at the end would make almost as much sense as the alligator at the end. I mean, it was clearly supposed to be kind of a fantastical ending, right?
Yes. But I think with the crocodile, those keep it more realistic and blurs the lines a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I get that.
Right.
I could see why that might have worked a little bit better, but I think either one would work.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to say was back to the Nicolas Cage playing two characters. I think the effects for that, of any scene where they were together, it was really seamless. I watched this on the Blu-ray. I don't know if you...
I watched it... I think this was on... you know what? I rented it on...
on Vudu?
Vudu, which is now called Fandango.
Fandango, yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. Well, I got the Blu-ray for it, and I had like an old DVD, but I wanted to upgrade to the Blu-ray for this. So, but it looked great. Just the effects of the two of them in the same scenes, and yeah.
I agree. I think I didn't notice anything wrong with those effects at all. I thought, like, and part of that also goes towards his acting, because he was able to do the role, both the roles, not seeing himself or who he was talking to at times, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it looked and worked pretty well there.
Also, a little behind the scenes for episode 1. It's hilarious what my notes look like and what your notes look like, because my notes are just all it's just garbage. I can't read half of it. I wrote it during the movie. It's completely useless to me. And then your notes are color organized. They're legible. It's organized. I'm like,
Yeah.
that is how you take notes. This is just horrible.
Yeah, I drew Ouroboros on the bottom here.
The Ouroboros was good. I like how it's the most meta movie ever, and it does start eating itself by its tail. Where he writes himself into a scene, and then we see the scene of him writing himself into that scene, and then and it is eating its own tail, and sort of that's the point where he realizes, like, I can't do this. Like, I need to actually write a script with a story, and the characters need to change by the end, and all that. And I think I will say this movie's about 2 hours long, and I did think in the middle, when it is getting to that point, it did drag a little bit. But that's sort of the point, is that the movie's not going anywhere, so he has to have the turn and turn it into a different thing. Yeah. By the end.
I guess I should, hello, I'm Ryan. I love 90-minute films.
Yep.
Not that a good film has to always be 90 minutes, but I do think that more films should shoot for 90 minutes. I think a lot of times movies, creators of film can be like, for example, this is an hour 54. Hour 54, great. Don't even look at it. I don't necessarily think they should have cut anything out of this, because I think you're right about why it kind of drags a little. But there are a lot of movies that I watch that feel like they have that drag, and I'm like, you could have just cut out 10 minutes. Yeah. It wouldn't have felt like the drag, and you'd be closer to my 90-minute mark, which, that
can be the case a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But occasionally there will be a movie like Immaculate, I was saying earlier, where I do feel like they could have expanded on the lore and some of the side characters a little bit, and I would have been interested to see that. But also, it was very watchable, and by the time it ended, I was like, Jesus, that was really quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus, literally. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I feel like that was a little bit all over the place of a discussion. But
well, there's one thing I want to bring up here, because you mentioned the contrast about Charlie and Donald, which I think is such an important part of the movie. And it reminded me, have you seen on Netflix, it's a short series called Living with Yourself?
No, but it sounds familiar.
It stars Paul Rudd twice.
Oh, okay, nice.
Kind of like this stars Nick Cage twice, of course. Where Paul Rudd is like kind of in similar to Charlie Kaufman in this, where Paul Rudd starts the series as this like really kind of down on his luck, hates his job, middle-aged guy who is looking for a way to like get out of that cycle, right? Of like, you go to work, you kind of hate your job, you hate your life, whatever.
Classic Office Space scenario.
Yeah. And someone at work just suddenly one day is like a brighter person, right? A smarter, faster, more energetic and stuff. And so Paul Rudd's like, dude, what is going on? And so he gives him a number to go to a spa. And so he goes to this spa, and then he gets cloned. And the clone is supposed to be the only one that survives. So he actually wakes up like buried underground and crawls out from underground, the old him. And the new him is like in his house, this energetic, happier, brighter, visually like brighter person. And then living with yourself, right? So he has to figure out how to learn to live with the other person. And at first they try to like hide one of them while the other, like the new Paul Rudd goes to work and the old one stays home and like works on his little script thing that he's working on, right?
Sounds very similar to Adaptation.
It does, actually.
Was it influenced specifically? Or?
I don't know. I didn't actually look into it, but it is a note that I wrote down that it felt very influenced.
Yeah.
Living with Yourself, I think I read a while back that it's mostly kind of supposed to be a stand-in, not a stand-in, a attempt to like show kind of like more literally bipolar disorder.
Oh.
Which is interesting because like one day he'll go to work as like he hates the other one of him because he's doing too good at his job. So he goes to work and he's like, what the fuck am I doing here? And he's like looking at the notes that the other him wrote and he's like, I don't know what any of this means. I can't do the thing. So he like goes to his boss and he's like, I need an extension. I have to push this off, right? Whatever. And so it comes off like from the outside like there's two of him, right? One
Yeah.
kind of the more manic side maybe, and one more depressive.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which I think I certainly see that more in living with yourself, but it does kind of come off as the kind of, in a way, because I don't think that the new Paul Rudd in that is really very manic, more just feels like the ideal self in a way, right?
Yeah.
Which it felt a lot like Charlie and Donald. So
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if it was influenced.
Yeah, definitely. And I could see that. I never thought of Adaptation potentially being about bipolar disorder, but I could see that interpretation potentially.
I mean, when you see the Charlie that is kind of the neurotic, cynical one, he also has these like trademarks of depression, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he's like living in literally a smaller, darker space. He's also like his typewriter's on this little tiny thing, and his brother has like this newer computer in this like bigger room with a brighter light and stuff. Also, like, by the way, a quick side note, Charlie Kaufman, I think there was like maybe 3 or 4 masturbation scenes with Nick Cage.
Yeah, there was a lot of masturbation in this movie. I didn't remember that.
Yeah, if you want to see Nick Cage masturbate, I think this is...
You don't see any of the details, but you see his fantasy, and you see maybe more than you'd like.
Which, by the way, very weird. This is leaving the whole bipolar conversation, but as a quick side note, really weird. I think like the first time he sees the face for Susan Orlean, he goes, "I like the way you look." He's like looking at the back cover of the book or something, and then he just starts fapping.
Yeah, that could have also been a scene that Susan Orlean read in the script and said, "This is a little crazy about my book about flowers." Now Nick Cage is jerking off to me from the back, the about the author section of my book.
It was weird.
That is strange. Also, I wanted to say this when you were talking about that Paul Rudd show.
Yeah.
Speaking of clones, have you seen the trailer for Mickey 17?
No.
Just came out a few days ago.
Oh.
Starring Robert Pattinson.
Wow.
Directed by Bong Joon-ho, who directed Parasite.
Okay.
And he's done a bunch of other movies. And Robert Pattinson plays... It's set in a sci-fi future dystopia sort of a thing. And Robert Pattinson signs up to be like a replaceable or something it's called. And basically they send him on all these dangerous missions, and then he dies, and then they clone him.
Oh.
And then, so it's Mickey 17, and there's Mickey was 1 through 16, and then there's probably a million other Mickeys. And it looks really good. It looks very comedic and just insane, and
That's cool.
I'm really looking forward to that. So that made me think of that and put it on the radar. I think it comes out out in like January though. Don't know why it's coming out in January. I think it got pushed back from this year, but I'm looking forward to it. The trailer looked insane.
We accept a good January movie once in a while.
Yeah, and I think it might just be a little wacky, and just they didn't know what to do with it potentially. I don't know. Robert Pattinson's doing kind of a weird voice, but I'm looking forward to it. But anyway, back to Adaptation. But that's also a movie with a person playing multiple roles.
Yeah,
that's coming out soon, so it's
related.
It fits.
Oh yeah.
Do you have anything else to say about Adaptation?
Real quick, just looking at my notes, I do have a few more. So the ending time lapse. There's a time lapse at the very end.
I also wanted to talk about that. So.
Yeah. Well, I wrote down one fun fact is that those flowers. Do you know the name of those flowers?
I don't.
They're called Amelias.
Oh.
Which is the name of, is that Maggie Gallagher?
Maggie Gyllenhaal?
Maggie Gyllenhaal's actress's name in this? Or
the character?
Character's name?
It could be. I had no idea.
I wrote that down for
awesome.
some reason, and I didn't write down why that was interesting.
Let me look. I'm on the IMDb right now. Maggie Gyllenhaal. Let's see what the name of her character was. Also, Tilda Swinton was in this, and she was very good.
Ah.
She played Caroline Cunningham. Not Amelia.
So who the hell was Amelia?
Is there a character named Amelia? There could be. I don't see. Oh, Amelia. Oh, Amelia is his like the lady that he was in love with, but he never made a move, and then she ended up dating someone else.
Oh, I don't know if
his
we actually
best
even
friend.
see her, right?
No, we see.
We do.
Yeah, we do. It was played by Cara Seymour. She's like British.
Oh,
she's
yes,
like a
that's
musician
right.
or something.
That's right.
And he loves her, but he won't make a move, and then she moves on to a different person.
Yeah.
And then I think at the end he kisses her, and she's sort of like, "What the hell?
Yes.
I'm with someone," but then she's sort of like, I like you though. You know?
there's could happen.
So that's sort of part of Charlie's character change by the end of the movie. So that's Amelia. So that is actually very sweet. Like I said, this is such a sweet movie actually by the end. And even though there's a lot of masturbation and strangeness,
it really and ironic because Nick Cage gets yelled at in an auditorium full of people because he's trying to write a movie about where the characters and the movie doesn't change a whole lot. Mm-hmm. And this movie, I feel like, very ironically, has a lot of change built in.
Well, yeah, after he sort of changes his perspective on that due to Robert McKee, and he kind of realizes that, people can change and things do happen, I guess. Yeah. Which is kind of what he thinks doesn't happen.
Yeah. But, so you had something else about the time-lapse.
Well, I was just saying how sort of a big theme in this movie is, like, the duality of Donald and Charlie, and by the end, he's sort of, the synthesis of the two characters is kind of the ideal of being able to have your artistic integrity, but also making something that can, is practical and works and is entertaining. But by the end, I feel like that last shot of the flowers is very crucial, where Charlie is trying to write a movie about flowers, and he can't do it because he's like, how the hell do you write a movie that's just about flowers? Like, there's no story, there's no characters, it's just flowers. But by the end, there's the flowers in the city. Yeah. And the city perhaps represents, like, the industry and Hollywood, and then the flowers are sort of the art coming through, and you see that at the end of the flowers within, sort of the art within the industry, and that's the last shot. And maybe, I didn't realize that Amelia's, that's awesome that's what that is, because maybe it's love also. Love and art and the good things in life sort of surrounded by Hollywood and the industry and negativity, and sort of the positivity grows through,
Yeah. Which also, if we think back perhaps to this being something of an analog to like a bipolar piece. Yeah. The flowers doing their growing during the day and then they're hiding and stuff at night. Yeah. That motion might be something there, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Representation. Also, I wrote down that it was interesting to show the flowers actually in that transformation, because much like perhaps a movie about flowers, we don't often think about flowers as being very mobile, right?
Yeah,
we don't think of them as moving or being changeable. Right?
Yeah. And the final song during the credits is Happy Together. Yeah. And that sort of is the whole thesis of the movie, of these two characters and being happy, combining the two and happy together. And also maybe Hollywood and art. Right. And happy together, bringing two things together to make this movie. So I think it's a really perfect ending, honestly. It really brings everything together and thematically and emotionally, and yeah, I think it's great.
I agree.
But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say. I will say the scene when Donald died, I was genuinely sad. Yes. I didn't like to see him go. No. I didn't like to see Donald go.
That was sad.
It was sad.
Although, I think it does let Charlie become more of himself. Right?
And perhaps maybe Charlie Kaufman himself, the writer outside the movie, he writes these two characters, and then by the time the Charlie character in the movie accepts Donald's sort of ideas and accepts the things that he is resisting the rest of the movie, there's no need for this fake character. Right. He dies because the character doesn't have any purpose anymore.
Right. Which, one thing, so I have two quick notes to say. One is, of course, that Donald Kaufman is actually credited for this movie, which is very funny.
He won an Oscar, I think.
Yes, or it was nominated, maybe.
I think it won. I think it won Best Adapted Screenplay, and like it said Charlie and Donald Kaufman. Yes. And because at the time, like, there's no internet. Yeah. So people are like, no one knows who Charlie Kaufman is, really. He's just the guy who wrote Being John Malkovich. Yeah. So people are like, does he have a twin? Like, is this real? I mean, no one knows.
Amazing.
And, it's pretty
and at awesome. The very end, we get a in loving memory of Donald Kaufman.
Yes.
During the credits.
And a very interesting part also is that at the end, there's a quote from The Three, which is the script
Yes.
that Donald was writing in the movie.
Right.
And I have right here what it says, but it says, "We're all one thing, Lieutenant. That's what I've come to realize, like cells in a body, except we can't see the body, the way fish can't see the ocean. And so we envy each other, hurt each other, hate each other. How silly is that? A heart cell hating a lung cell." And that's Cassie from The Three. And that's the final quote that we see at the end of the movie. And it sort of does sum up maybe the best parts of Donald's philosophy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And talks about, bringing together the characters, right? Because in that, I think it's a multi-personality thing. Very cliche, right? Of course, they mention. And it's bringing together the three unique characters. At least that's what I interpreted.
Yeah.
I wrote down a kind of crazy note here. I don't fully believe this, but I think there's just enough evidence to perhaps...
This is a harebrained scheme. I don't like it.
To perhaps propose the fact that Donald may never have been in this movie.
I had the same thought, but when he went to the Being John Malkovich set, and I thought it could have been a Fight Club situation as well.
Yes.
But I don't think so.
Uh-huh.
I had the thought, but I discounted it once he was in public. Because at the beginning of the movie, it's just them in their apartment.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a reason to believe that he doesn't exist. But I think by the end, a lot of other characters are interacting with him.
I think Maggie Gyllenhaal's the hardest sell for me. But at the very end, Charlie calls his mom.
He does.
And do you know how his mom picks up? Do you know what she says?
No.
First thing she says, Donald? She says, nope, not Donald. She says, Charlie?
Mm-hmm.
She knows it's Charlie.
Yeah.
There was no caller ID.
Well, there could have been caller ID.
I don't think so. So he's
so she probably has his number saved.
I don't think so.
It's his mom. She probably knows his phone number.
2002.
She probably wrote it down in a phone book. She probably has it memorized. Let's be real.
I gotta look back. He might have been calling on like a cop car or phone or something.
Oh, you're right. It was a random.
Yeah.
Like a random person just gave him a phone.
That's right. And so he calls, and she picks up, and she knows it's him right away. How would you know these two characters? We said that there's a lot of differences between them, but not in their voice. If I watched this movie, if I just listened to this movie, there'd be times where I would know because of the optimism, but times where I wouldn't. And then he doesn't... I don't remember what he says after that, but clearly I thought that was a good, important piece of my theory.
I kind of see what you're saying.
So maybe...
It's
Maggie
possible.
Gyllenhaal is also not real.
Or perhaps, to go back to Fight Club, not that that's a perfect thing that makes complete sense, but there is that scene where Tyler and the narrator are with Marla, and she's sort of interacting with them, and you don't realize that she's really only interacting with the narrator. Mm-hmm. So maybe in that scene where they're at a party, do you remember that scene?
Yes, yeah.
She's interacting with Donald, but I felt like everyone was interacting with the two of them.
I remember thinking back to that scene also when I was making this, when I was thinking of this theory, and I also remember thinking back to that, and I didn't go back and rewatch that scene, which maybe I should have. I don't have a good final answer for it, but...
So it's a theory. It's in the air.
It's in the air. I'm not going to write up a whole thing about it, but...
Well... Maybe that's a good transition to our next movie.
It could be a good transition to our next movie.
All right. Well, I guess that's it for adaptation. Maybe final thoughts. Should we give a rating to the movie? Did you...
This is a funny thing. I usually log everything on Letterboxd right away.
Yeah.
But I intentionally waited on these two until we talked about them because I thought just hearing all of our thoughts all together might make me think more about the movies. If I had to give this a rating right now, Adaptation would be really close to 5 stars.
That's what I also would give it 4.5.
I think if I could give it, and if I could go in between, I would probably do 4.75 or something.
Yeah, 4.9 out of 5.
Yeah,
like right there.
If Letterboxd was like a 10-point system, it'd be easier. But on Letterboxd, I think I'll probably end up at 4.5.
Yeah, that's also what I gave it. I think it's a great movie. Different 4.5 and 5. Like sometimes, what's the difference anyway? But I think overall, it's a great movie, and it's entertaining, and It has a lot to think about, a lot to chew on. Now there's a reason for me to go back and watch it again.
There we go.
This might have been like the third time I've seen it, and now I have another reason to go back and just see if Donald actually exists or not.
Yeah. Let us know, everyone, by the way. Watch this and tell us, because I think there's something there.
Maybe go to our letterbox.
Yes.
And comment on our review.
Yeah.
And if you have a theory of what that is. Or just comment on the YouTube or...
Yeah.
I don't know.
We'll have our letterbox names in our description or something, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
So, I don't know mine, or I'd say it, but...
I think mine's just S Barlow 3.
Mine might be easy,
BARLOW 3.
Mine, I'm going to go on a limb and say, mine's Ryan T. Kirby. RyanTKirby. Ooh, find us.
Easy. Yeah, find us, follow us, don't stalk us.
Nope, that's bad.
Anyway, well, I guess that's that for Adaptation. I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you discovered another great movie.
And also, real quick, probably you mentioned this earlier already, and I probably have to agree that this might be the best Nick Cage role.
Yeah, I think it's really up there.
I mean, yeah. Even if something's tied, he does 2 whole performances. So.
Yeah. Have you seen Leaving Las Vegas?
Oh, yeah.
I haven't seen it.
You haven't?
No, it's kind of one that I'm like, is it just drudgery? Or is it like kind of fun? Like, is he a fun drunk?
It's worth watching once.
Okay. But is it boring?
Yeah.
Oh, that's why I haven't watched
it.
Because it seems a little bit like 90s Oscar. Like, I don't know. Like, I haven't seen Out of Africa. It won best picture, but am I gonna go watch Out of Africa?
Yeah.
No, I'm not gonna watch Gandhi. Who gives a fuck? I could read a book. Mm-hmm. The movie just looked kind of boring. But anyway, I mean, maybe it's a great movie. I probably just offended a bunch of people that love Gandhi and Out of Africa. But some there's a million movies out there. You can't watch them all.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway,
you know what we can watch?
Yep.
Raising Arizona.
Oh yeah.
This is part 2, of course, for our AdaptArizona. Which is
Arizona.
You could put all these clips of us staying AdaptArizona together, and you'll see they're probably all the same.
Yeah, I think so.
Actually, I think we're doing pretty good.
AdaptArizona.
When we came up with
it, we had about 5 different variations. We were trying to figure it out.
Yeah, but this one clearly flows off the tongue.
AdaptArizona, it's perfect. Should be, yeah.
Part 2 of AdaptArizona. So, Raising Arizona was my pick for our Nick Cage movie. Before watching Adaptation, I'll say, it was my favorite Nick Cage movie. Which I only watched for the first time last year or so, maybe the year before, maybe with Shane. I think even after watching Adaptation, it's still probably my favorite Nick Cage movie. But it's a Coen Brothers movie, directed by Joel Coen, written by both of them, Joel and Ethan. And 1987. It's an hour and 34 minutes.
Right there.
Wonderful.
Right in the sweet
Absolutely
spot.
Perfect. So, Raising Arizona, it follows Nick Cage's character named Hi, or H.I., as some people call him. Mm-hmm. He's a career criminal who wants to turn over a new leaf because he falls in love with a cop. The cop that continuously processes his arrest. It's not clear if she ever actually arrests him, but she takes all the pictures and everything.
Seems like she's kind of works in the office.
Yeah. But he falls in love. And, of course, her name is Ed. Short for Edwina.
Yeah, Edwina.
I noticed that this time around.
Yep.
And so the two of them fall in love. Once he gets out of the jail for like the probably 5th time, they settle down. They get a trailer or something pretty far in a rural area, and they try to have a baby, but they can't. So they make a brilliant plan to go back to High's criminal roots and just steal a baby.
Because the Arizona family had 5 quintuplets.
Yes, yeah, Nathan Arizona, which is introduced in the movie as, of course you know Nathan Arizona.
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious.
He's like the mattress king or furniture king of Arizona or whatever.
Yeah. And so they just had quintuplets, so the two of them conspire to steal a baby, and they do. Nathan Jr. And the movie essentially follows them trying to raise Nathan Jr. while some people from his criminal life come back in, and also a bounty hunter that's hired by... Actually kind of just goes out of his way to become hired.
Yeah. Hired against his will.
Yeah, by Nathan Arizona. Tries to look for the baby. And that is the movie.
Well, here's a very important thing to start with. Do you know the names of all the babies?
I can try. Okay, we got Nathan Jr., of course.
Of course.
We've got... They all end in something stupid like...
They do.
They
have the same 3 letters at the end, actually.
It's Airy, right? It's Harry, Barry,
Yep.
Larry.
Yes.
Can't be Jerry.
Close.
Terry... Gary.
Gary
with 2
with
R's.
2 R's. And you had them in order, too. Harry, Barry, Larry, Gary, and Nathan Jr.
Which, very funny, too, that Nathan Jr. Is, one, the odd name, but also named after the dad, and he's the one that gets stolen.
Yeah, true. They could have just took fucking Gary. Who gives a fuck? They spelled his name wrong. I mean, come on. No one would have noticed.
Although one other interesting, it's never actually clear if anyone actually knows the babies apart, because
when he's stealing them, I'm like, it's chaos. Who knows which one's Gary and Larry? You can't tell.
Oh no, absolutely. And even when
who knows if they even took Nathan Jr.? It could have been Gary for all we know.
When he's asked at the car, he brings it back and she goes, "Which one is it?" And he says, "Nathan Jr., I think."
Yeah.
And then when Nathan Arizona is getting interviewed by the cops, they say, "What was his name?" And he goes, "Nathan Jr., I think."
Yeah, no one knows.
Nobody actually knows.
That's funny.
Which, I have a side note here real quick that I thought that was funny, particularly because along my reading, either on Wikipedia or IMDb or something, apparently there was like around 15 kids altogether that cycled in and out of playing one of those 5 kids.
Really?
Yeah.
That makes sense. I think there are sort of laws about child actors can only work so many hours. So they must have just been replacing the baby just for the hours, I guess.
So it makes sense that nobody could tell them apart because there's more than just the 5.
Yeah. Well, it looked consistent to me. I would have never known it was 15 different babies.
That's true.
Well, I mean, maybe before we get too deep into the movie, I did write some backstory a little bit about the main players involved in this. I mean, this is the second Coen Brothers movie.
That's right.
Blood Simple is their first one, 1984. Then this is 87, and then they do Miller's Crossing, and then Barton Fink is 1991, and they win the Palme d'Or with that one. And I had written down that Joel Coen was the assistant film editor on The Evil Dead, and he was actually roommates with Sam Raimi. And
there's that shot in this movie that
it's like the Evil Dead shot.
Yes, yeah. When
they find that Nathan Jr.'s missing,
and she's got the
Home Alone scream.
Yes,
Home Alone, yeah,
amazing.
But apparently they were also roommates with Frances McDormand, who later became Joel's wife, and Holly Hunter, who plays Ed. They were all roommates apparently, and apparently also Kathy Bates.
Wow.
Apparently the Coen brothers, Sam Raimi, and those 3 actors were all roommates at a time. Allegedly, that's what I saw on the internet. But
the industry.
Yeah, and then for the Nicolas Cage side of things, this comes out in '87, the same year as Moonstruck, and I feel like this is kind of his breakout year.
Yeah.
Like before this, he was in some side roles in The Outsiders and stuff with his uncle, Francis Ford Coppola. And, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, he plays like a burger chef or whatever. Like, he's in the background. And, this was kind of a big breakout year for Cage, I think. And then '88, he made his masterpiece, Vampire's Kiss, of course.
Masterpiece.
He really has great performance. And then this is actually shot by Barry Sonnenfeld, who went on to direct Men in Black.
Oh!
And Wild Wild West, the Will Smith's greatest film.
Wow.
Also a little thing I noticed, they, at one point, someone is working... Nick Cage is working for Hudsucker Industries. Mm-hmm. And the Coen brothers made a Hudsucker proxy in 94 after this. So maybe there's a shared universe there where they exist in a shared universe.
Wow.
But, I mean, that was kind of all my backstory I wanted to get in.
That's great stuff. I can give that rundown of the ratings again, too. So I wrote down... to compare this to our adaptation ratings that I gave a bit ago, this had 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is 1% higher than Adaptation. Although the audience score was exactly the same at 85. IMDb has this lower at 7.3 out of 10 instead of 7.7.
It's the yodeling.
Letterboxd has it at 3.9 instead of Adaptation's 4.1, giving this an average of 8.175 9.5 out of 10 compared to 8.35.
Wow.
So just barely under
So Adaptation is objectively better.
Well,
this is the end of the podcast. We have nothing to talk about. The people have spoken.
Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next time. But yeah, I mean, also amazing that this is such a fun first episode to have two things that averaging out in ratings, and of course this doesn't mean a whole lot, but is over 8, which, I mean, both these movies are just very good movies.
They're classics, really, at this point. I mean. But yeah, back to the movie. I did also note that I really love that prologue. The prologue is actually 11 minutes long. The title shows up on the screen like about 11 minutes into the movie, which is pretty audacious.
Oh, yeah. I think amazing thing about this prologue is that, going back to my 90-minute thing, this is something that a lot of movies would have, and a lot of directors would have stretched out.
Yeah.
Right? This could have been a whole first act for some movies.
They get through a lot of information real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
but it's fun. It doesn't feel like they're just giving you stuff.
No. And it doesn't also feel rushed, right? It feels, I mean, obviously it feels quicker than it would if it was a whole act, but like, it feels right. You know, it feels normal. It feels fun. It's good.
It's fast paced, but it doesn't feel like you're missing anything there.
Right.
It feels very deliberately fast paced.
Which, this is actually an interesting thing between these two movies, is that in both of these, and we didn't mention this much in our adaptation talk, but Nicolas Cage gives narration in both these movies to some extent.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Which I thought was really weird.
Which Robert McKee hates.
Robert McKee hates, and actually says that. That's when, in Adaptation, he's like zoned out, and then he hears, not zoned out, you're hearing his narration.
Yes.
And then it cuts back to Robert McKee, the narration stops, and he's saying that narration is like the stupidest, worst thing that you can do.
It's lazy.
Laziest, yeah. And in both these movies, I think they use narration in a very powerful way.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Well, I think in Adaptation, it really works to get you inside his mind and
that neurosis.
But in this one, it's just funny.
It's funny.
It just adds to the comedy of it all, I think.
Yeah. And it helps kind of expedite some of that backstory, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he tells us about who Nathan Arizona is, right? He tells us about, and in a funny way, right? I mean, it feels very sincere. It does get me wondering when he's talking, because there's times where he's like referencing things. He's like, I didn't write any of this down, but there was times where he talks about things in like past tense, and it got me wondering, like, is he narrating this like just after the movie happened?
Could be.
What are they old and growing old together, and he's narrating? What's going on?
Yeah.
You know? Like, when is he telling this story?
Yeah. It probably after the movie. He's sort of relaying the story.
Yeah.
Well, at the end, not to skip to the end of the movie, but it sort of does have that whole, that flash forward to the end of their life, but as a dream. So I think maybe the narration is taking place sort of at the end of the story.
Yeah.
But I think the Coen brothers do like a sort of omniscient narrator, like Big Lebowski. They have the cowboy, and
Fun fact: when I first watched Big Lebowski, I thought it was a little overrated. I really want to rewatch it because I think I have a better. I think Raising Arizona has made me like the Coen brothers quite a bit more, and their humor and like style of writing and stuff. Yeah. And there's a lot of things thinking back to the Big Lebowski that I find funnier now because I like Raising Arizona so much. Which I don't know what that means, but it does mean that I have to rewatch that movie.
I think The Big Lebowski is it's also a movie I watched for the first time, maybe in high school, and I was kind of like, this is all right, but maybe a little overhyped. I didn't fully get it, but I think on rewatches it adds value each time. Where the first time, I think you're trying to understand the crazy plot, which is so convoluted in that movie.
Yeah.
But by the time the second, third time, you can kind of just enjoy the characters, enjoy the comedy and the strangeness of it all. And that's probably one of the movies I've rewatched the most.
Yeah.
I've seen it so many times.
Speaking of strangeness, this movie really leans into the strangeness at times. This movie has like no problem being slapsticky and like cartoony, a little whimsical and over the top at times. I mean, that's very shown off when we get our main antagonist later on, but even before that, like when Glenn, they're like, I don't even know
Swingers?
how they know them. Yeah, but the swingers, they're I think
Glenn works at the
you're right.
plant where High works.
Yeah, because he gets him fired.
Yeah, he's like a supervisor or whatever.
Yeah. But so when they invite Glenn over and the family, there's like one scene when like Glenn's like looks over at the kids and they're all like on the car, on like High's car, and they're like beating it up, and it looks like something out of like a Dennis the Menace cartoon or something. Like it's
they write fart on the wall.
Yeah. Yep. And he's like proud of his kid for knowing the alphabet as he's writing fart on the wall.
Yep.
That Glenn character, I have a whole like info chart here in my notes. Yeah. So I don't even know if our video is still on, but there is, as Shane said, my notes look kind of funny.
Immaculate.
Thank you.
Sydney Sweeney.
Oh my
notes.
gosh. And I've got a whole little chart here about Glenn because I thought he was such a despicable character.
He was pretty despicable. I hated him. I was very happy when he got punched.
Oh my gosh. Also very, very fun to me that this movie, like, in some movies, the worst character that you can make, right? The reason they're making them so bad is because that character's dead. That character is dying.
Yeah.
This character gets punched in the face and is effectively out of the movie after that, other than the premonition at the end when he's like getting arrested because he's making the Polish joke to the Polish police officer.
Yeah. Well, he gets his comeuppance at the end then with the Polish cop.
Because he's making fun of Polish people. He like raises his children in such that way.
Barely doesn't raise them very well.
That's right. They like literally tear down this guy's like trailer when they come to visit. I mean, it's crazy. He even ends up blackmailing High.
Yeah, and he also tries to fuck his wife.
Yeah,
which is
that's rough.
Which is a good reason to punch someone, I think.
Also, he has a car sticker. This is maybe his worst offense. He has a sticker on his car that says "Caution: I drive naked." And actually, that's when I started writing these notes.
I kind of changed my mind about this Glenn guy. I kind of like him. That's a good car sticker. But I think. Oh God, I was gonna say something and it just completely left my brain. I did enjoy when he got punched in the face. Oh, interesting thing was after he punches him, Ed is really mad at Nick Cage, and she's like, "Why the hell would you do that?" I don't remember the exact dialogue, but she's like, "Why the hell would you do that?" And he said, "Well, at least you have a man for a husband." And she says, basically, "What the hell is that worth?" And I thought it was a little tiny thing, but it was kind of an interesting dichotomy of how men and women view things, and of him sort of sticking up for his wife, and he thinks he's doing the right thing and being a real man, and she's like, well, yeah, but now you don't have a job, you fucking idiot. I thought that was a little interesting, and I think Holly Hunter in this is really great.
She's God. Yeah, we haven't
great
really
performance.
I feel like we're jumping around all over the place in this, but we haven't talked about that. No, that's. I mean, I want to jump right to Glenn. But yeah, we haven't talked much about the performances, and yeah, she does a fantastic job. I think this might be one of my favorite Nick Cage performances. Also, not one of his, maybe not his all-time best. I mean,
very iconic. Just the look, the hair, the mustache, the Hawaiian shirt, the tattoo. I mean, which all comes into play later.
Yeah,
but it's the great look, and he's very deadpan in this movie. It's one of actually his like most subtle performances in a movie that's so wacky.
Yeah,
which is
hilarious,
strange. Yeah,
and I mean he's like stealing the Huggies, and he has that weird accent. He's saying, "I'll take these here Huggies and all the money you got," or something. And he says it in like the weirdest, like nobody else could have performed that way, right? And it's not necessarily the most cagey performance, but it's fantastic. I mean, just his acting, right? He doesn't need to be, yelling about the ABCs like in Vampire's Kiss to be a good Cage, right? Or a good actor.
It's very, very subtle. He doesn't have any big, wacky moments.
Yeah.
And it really works for playing that deadpan character around all the wackiness of the movie. If he was crazy, then the movie might fall off the rails a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think he's great, yeah.
And also, John Goodman is in this.
His performance is wacky.
His performance is wacky, but amazing. And who is it that plays his brother?
I'm really not sure. He just kind of looked like a mini John Goodman, honestly.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean,
it was a little bit of a Mike Wazowski Scully situation there. I thought,
Yeah, and
But,
they both did really well though, being at times despicable and also hilarious.
I believe it's William Forsythe.
That's right. That sounds right.
Yeah, which I don't know. He kind of looks familiar, but I don't really know if I've seen a ton that he's in.
Yeah, me neither.
But yeah,
so the two of them, I mean, for example, right, they go in to rob that, it's a bank. Yeah, they go in to rob the bank at this point, they've stolen, God, if you haven't seen this movie, this plot makes no sense from what we're saying.
Well, yeah, we're jumping around a little bit, but yeah.
They've now acquired Nathan Jr. They're planning on claiming the bounty, and they're trying to rob the bank at the same time, and they bring Nathan Jr. into the bank, and they're yelling at everyone, freeze, and get on the ground. And I think one of them says one says
which one?
Which one?
Yeah,
that guy. Oh man, that guy was hilarious. That old guy.
Yeah. He's like, if we get on the ground, we can't exactly freeze or whatever he says.
Yeah, amazing. I just thought, pretty much every actor in here was. This movie was just so well acted, well cast, well acted.
Yep. Maybe a little side thing before we get back to it. I think this movie is kind of interesting in showing the Coen brothers. There are some kind of recurring themes in this movie that show up later in their work of obviously the narration with Big Lebowski, and I thought the biker of the apocalypse, who you find out his name is, what's his name?
Leonard Smalls.
Yeah, Leonard Smalls. Hilarious name for that guy. But he sort of reminded me of Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men. He's almost this embodiment of death or evil, or he drives by and things catch on fire and bodies explode and all this. He
gets shot in the hand and his hand catches on fire.
Yeah. He's like this metaphysical embodiment of evil.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny that this movie and No Country for Old Men, which are very different in tone, 20 years apart, they kind of have that connective tissue between them.
Yeah, and this being so early in their career too. That is pretty interesting.
And also, this is kind of a movie about dumb people.
Yeah,
every character in this is kind of dumb.
Absolutely.
And a lot of their movies are about dumb people or people that are in over their head, whether Burn After Reading or Fargo, or really a lot of their movies have characters who are a little bit dense, and that's where the comedy comes from.
Thick as skull.
Yeah, right.
One quick shot that I wanted to point out is when John Goodman breaks out of jail. John Goodman and his brother. Their names in this, by the way, are so unmemorable. I think it's like Gale and
Gale and Evil.
Evil. That's right. Yeah. And when they're breaking out of jail, they're coming out of the mud. Right. They just crawled through tunneling and whatever to break out. And in most movies, you expect when someone's going to climb out of mud, what body part to go first?
Their head. or a hand.
You expect maybe their hand, right? I feel like that's like the iconic, like Frankensteinian thing, right?
Yeah.
And so you expect someone's hand to come out. And I thought it was interesting, John Goodman actually just comes out screaming like he's being birthed, head out of the mud. And
he does a lot of screaming in this movie.
Oh my, I actually wrote down, I don't know if I've ever heard John Goodman scream so much in any film.
Yeah.
And so he's coming out screaming like he's being birthed from the mud, covered in gross mud. And then, though, it gets even better because he pulls his brother out by the foot.
Yeah. And they're going through the mud, and they had to go through a sewer, and oh, God.
That was... I thought that scene, that shot, it's like rainy, this
is actually before Shawshank Redemption, but that almost seemed like a parody of Shawshank Redemption to me.
Yeah. So I thought that shot, like, it's... Other than, like, the chase scene in this, it might be, like, my favorite, like, single shot from the movie. Like, not shot, but, like, shot, scene, whatever. Yeah. There's so much great stuff in this movie.
Yeah.
But the chase scene...
Yes, I noted that. That is maybe the best scene in the movie. It's awesome.
Yeah.
When he robs the convenience store...
for the Huggies.
For the Huggies, yes. And that is just a fantastic scene. Ed is just just pissed at him and driving away with the baby.
Yes.
And the cops are chasing him, and there's the dogs, and it's just...
and the cashier pulls out that
Yeah.
giant gun, the biggest gun, I think, the biggest pistol you see in the movie.
Yeah.
Which, also, a funny thing about this movie, I don't think High ever actually shoots a gun.
No, I don't think so. He doesn't use loaded guns, so
Yeah.
it's not like... It's like lesser jail time, he
That's
says.
right, he
Yeah.
mentions that. Yeah, he's, he might be a criminal, but...
He's got a heart of gold,
He's
really.
got a heart... Yeah, he's certainly...
Maybe not a heart of gold, maybe bronze.
Maybe.
But yeah, I mean...
silver.
I don't know how much we want to go through more of the story, or if you want to get to your big theory. Maybe we should have mentioned this at the top of the show, but Ryan does have a big old fan theory about this.
That's right.
And I do have my little interpretation of sort of maybe the basic interpretation of the movie, and then you could maybe get into your harebrained theory.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean...
this is good too, because the plot, I feel like we've been all over the place, so this is probably helpful to actually...
So basically, everyone's just on the hunt for Nathan Jr. Eventually John Goodman and his brother, Gail and Evel, they end up with the baby. They go to rob a bank. They leave the baby behind. Everyone's looking for it. The biker of the apocalypse, a.k.a. Leonard Smalls, he's going there, and they sort of all meet at the bank. That's sort of where the final showdown happens, and High and the biker have a final showdown, and High pulls the pin of a grenade and ends up blowing up Leonard, poor Leo. And then at the end they go back, they give Nathan Jr. back to the Arizonas, and they sort of reconcile, which is kind of crazy how they just are kind of like, well, thanks for bringing him back.
Everyone in this movie is so forgiving and thankful. Even when people are robbing places, other than that one cashier that had the giant pistol, like the people that were getting robbed at the bank, they were like, all right, son, and they get on the ground. Everyone's counting when they... John Goodman and his brother tell everyone to count. So
that's one of the funniest things, because Evel, who's just an idiot, they rob the convenience store, I think also for Huggies and money and whatever.
Yeah, when
and
they steal.
It's like a little podunk convenience store, and he tells the guy, like, count to 900, and I'll come back in 5 minutes to check. And then obviously he's not going to come back, so they drive away. But I think they leave behind Nathan Jr., right?
Yeah.
So then the guy's counting, he's about 821, 822.
Oh, Scrotus.
Yeah. And then he stands up and he looks out the window, and Gail and Evel are coming back to get Nathan Jr. But he's like, well, shit, 823.
And he goes back down.
Yeah. Just a hilarious joke there. But, I mean, I guess that's the plot. At the end, there's a very sweet dream sequence of them sort of growing old with a family, and, maybe they end up having a family one day, And it's really a sweet movie. But I think sort of this Leonard Smalls character, my interpretation is sort of that he just represents the outlaw nature of High. And he, at the end of the movie, High kills him, and he sort of becomes a family man. That he's done with robbing banks, and that's his character change by the end, is he's moved on to being a family man. And that's sort of the basic version. But I do think maybe you have a more complicated version of the interpretation of the events.
I do, actually. That's right. So, before I jump into my theory here, which has been carefully crafted and renowned actually by many of the greatest people on Reddit.
Yeah, people on Reddit and Letterboxd love
it. I have two quick small notes that I thought I wanted to bring up. One, I thought this was hilarious. Apparently, Randall Cobb, who plays Leonard Smalls, had never actually doesn't know how to ride a motorcycle before this. So learns to ride a motorcycle for this.
That's funny.
But wasn't very good at it right away, at least. And so, remember that big hole that he drives up to? The big hole that the two of them escape from prison.
Yes.
So when he starts his hunt for Nathan Jr., he goes there for some reason. Yeah. And apparently, in one of the shots, he just falls in that hole on his motorcycle. He's just riding his motorcycle up. Wow. He just falls in there. So I thought that was hilarious. The other thing I thought would be interesting to bring up before I go on, before I go get my tinfoil hat, is the score of this movie.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing, but
They use it a lot.
they use it a lot.
There's a lot of yodeling in
A
this
lot
movie.
of yodeling.
I was actually watching this with my girlfriend, and she was sort of in the room, but she wasn't really watching. But she was just doing whatever, and I think the yodeling might have drove her crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, she was like, I hated that movie, and she wasn't really watching it. But I was like, why? And she was like, the fucking yodeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. If you're not watching it, there's probably like 20-30 minutes of yodeling in the movie. But I mean, I don't mind it really that much.
I think it's an interesting thing because I think in the movie, most of the time when it happens, it just kind of works.
Yeah.
Right? But I could totally see just listening to this movie would probably drive a sane person insane.
Yeah. But it does work. I think it does work for the most part. I really like it. It's really catchy. It gets stuck in your craw.
Can you do it? I can't yodel.
No.
That's a good choice. Good choice.
We can't be yodeling on episode 1.
No.
Come on.
It'd be hilarious to I'm just going to cut in here the yodeling and I'm going to pretend like I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, it's in there.
That was great. That was really impressive. Wow.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been practicing yodeling for years. Anyways, so theory time. So when I first watched this movie, I kind of left the movie thinking that there was something more going on here, right? So I spent a little bit thinking about it. And it really wasn't that long, actually. I came up with this theory pretty quickly because it was so obvious that Leonard Smalls, the kind of dual shotgun wielding, leather equipped bike rider from hell, who Edwina even calls him at one point she says the warthog from hell, I think she calls him, which is very apropos for his character, I think. But I think it's also not correct. I think, of course, he's not from hell. I think he's from the future.
Yep.
So, here's the thing, right? So
it turns out Raising Arizona is a sci-fi movie.
I think it's a sci-fi movie, and I think it's about time travel, and I think it's about family. I think it's really in the Fast and Furious franchise. It really is about family, but
yes.
I also think it's even more deeply about family than we might think, because I think that Nathan Jr. Goes back in time when he's old. So he's in his however old Randall Cobb is, many years, and the world has gone to shit, right? Like apocalyptic Mad Max style, right? So naturally, he wears leather. He has shotguns.
He looks right out of Mad Max.
Yeah, I mean, even when you first see him, he's driving down in a desert, which Arizona is known for, but also Mad Max is known for. So,
true. Looks like he came out of the Thunderdome.
Yes, best Mad Max movie.
No.
So
no, it's not. But that's okay.
Back to my less controversial take, which is that so Leonard Smalls has a really strange name. Right, so I'm going to go through some evidence for this.
Well, he's named Small, but he's big.
He's very big, but you know who is small?
Nathan Jr.
Nathan Jr. So in reality, he didn't act. That's not his name, right? He picked that name because he's going for Nathan Jr. He's going back in time because he wants to separate Nathan Jr. from High. I don't know why. I don't think it's very clear, but it seems to me like maybe him being raised by High might have ended up making him this warthog from hell, right?
And leading to the end of the world.
It might lead to the end of the world, yep.
Wow.
Or maybe the end of the world happens anyways, and he becomes an outlaw because of High, and he doesn't want that, right? Maybe he wants something else for himself. Either way, he comes back in time, right? And so I wrote this theory out in a Reddit post and Letterboxd review last year. I reread it going into this. And I think I might have been a little ambitious in assuming that High might have caused the end of the world somehow. But...
Well, I could see that because at the end of the movie he has his dream and the world is great.
Yes.
But this character does not seem to come from a great world.
No, he does not. And he does not seem to come from this world either, right? He is like tarred in the face. He's got ash all over him. He's riding in on this motorcycle that like shoots fire. It leaves fire in its tracks. He gets shot in the hand and his hand glows. Right? We talked about this kind of being a little cartoony, but it's also just it's not our worldly, right? It might be more futuristic or something. So he comes back in time to try to separate him from High, and it works. So the world ends up much better. But so here's some of my evidence. One, we all know that they have the same tattoo, High and Nathan Jr.
Well, High and the biker.
High and the biker. Sorry. Right. Nathan
Hold on. Let's
no
not get carried
tattoos
away.
yet.
Yeah.
Him and the biker have the same tattoo. The biker has it on his chest, right at the heart. High has it on his arm.
The Woody Woodpecker tattoo.
The Woody Woodpecker. So many people say this is to help show the fact that the biker is like Nick Cage's bad side, right? The outlaw, right? So when he blows him up with the grenade, he can finally escape that outlaw past and go on and have a good life. But if that's the case, why isn't the tattoo at the same place as it is on High, right? If he's like, or at the opposite arm or something, right? The heart is a really weird place. You know, where it's not a weird place to get a tattoo for like a memorial to your dad, right? Or the person that raised you. So, maybe it's a memorial to Nick Cage, who raises him, so when Nick Cage maybe dies or whatever, he gets a tattoo there.
I mean, there's no evidence for it, but I like it.
I don't know what you're talking about. The evidence is right there.
The evidence is all in your head.
It's clear. It's clear.
I see what you mean. I mean, it would make more sense if it was in the same spot, if it was supposed to be him, right?
Yeah. So here's maybe one of my strongest pieces of evidence is that Leonard Smalls carries around with him baby shoes.
Yeah, the baby shoes is weird.
And actually, they're very prominent. You see them a lot. And when he gets blown up, they're one of the only things that you actually see afterwards. Yes. It gets flown away, and you get a nice close-up on him.
Yep.
Which I think is a point in my favor. And before I get any other comments about it not being, I'm just going to jump to my next piece.
Well, wait, but why does the baby shoes, like... What does that signify?
That's a good question. They're a symbol to his past, right? What he has to go back and change.
Right. He's looking for a baby and he needs a reminder.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
All right. I always kind of wondering about the baby shoes. I was like, I don't know what the point of the baby shoes is.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, he has like the rabbit skull necklace and stuff.
Right.
And I hope that the baby shoes aren't a similar token.
That he killed a baby? He's a baby killer?
I hope
not. I kind of like that.
I think a better explanation is that they maybe were his baby shoes from when he was, Nathan Jr. And when he grew up, he wore them as a memory of where he came from, right?
Maybe he brought them as maybe it's the last thing he had from when he was a baby.
Yeah.
He brought them back, so he's like, I'm looking for a baby with these exact shoes.
Ah, there we go. See? Could be. Some of the other things, so every character that sees him does two things. One, they clearly fall in love with him. Like every character just loves him and wants to steal him. Nathan Jr. But also, they say that he has a certain look in his eyes.
He does. He looks like a rascal, basically, or something.
Yeah, I think they say an outlaw.
And he does
look
like
they say he looks like an outlaw. Yeah. And actually, even when High first dreams of Leonard, which is interesting. Why would you dream of some random bounty hunter that's going to come take your child? Acquired child. But when he dreams of Leonard, he says, the lone biker of the apocalypse. He says, I fear that I myself have released him, because he is the fury that be as soon as Florence, Arizona finds her baby gone. I think this could realistically be showing that either he is like the bad side, the outlaw side of High, or that he is, in fact, Nathan Jr., who's being released from the future because him being stolen as a kid makes him grow up as an outlaw right?
And destroy the world.
And perhaps destroy the world.
Turn the world into Mad Max.
That's possible. Also, when he wakes up, Ed is singing to Junior, and when Hi says, "Is he okay?" she says, "He's just having a nightmare," as if they somehow maybe had the same nightmare of Leonard Smalls riding in on that motorcycle. By the way, that motorcycle leaves a trail of flames behind it.
Yep.
Almost like a certain science fiction vehicle that goes back in time.
This is right after Back to... Oh, yeah, you're right.
So it could be a DeLorean-style bicycle from the future.
It could be.
Hey,
I mean, this is the thing. When you told me about this, I was like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? But then the more you explain, I'm like, well, you know what? I kind of see where you're coming from a little bit.
Yep.
You know?
I mean, it's kind of
I mean, why is there flames on the back of the motorcycle? Just because it's cool, make him otherworldly, I guess, probably?
I mean, it
Making
is.
sort of a supernatural
which is true.
force.
But also, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Why... He is so heavily supernatural, right? He's like this... Again, she says, like, warthog from hell, right?
Yeah.
He's like... The flames in the hand, the flames on the bike, even the exhaust of his bike always comes out in like this blue flame, right? And it's like, why does he have to be this? He could have been like slapsticky and over the top still, and not been like so supernatural. But I think maybe that's a point towards him being from the future. I don't know exactly why the future makes people supernatural, but if he can time travel...
Something strange has happened.
I have two more strong pieces of evidence.
Okay.
One, his
strong evidence here.
strong evidence. His name, Leonard Smalls.
Yep.
Smalls. We already established that could be because
the babies are small.
Babies are small.
Yep.
Nathan Jr., baby.
Yes.
Leonard.
Yep.
Do you remember, Shane, that when Hi is stealing Nathan Jr., he also steals something else from the house? Do you remember what he steals?
No.
It's
Issues?
a secondary MacGuffin in the movie that's kind of only seen a few times, but it's stolen by Hi when he steals the baby the first time. And then, when John Goodman's character steals the baby, they get into that big fight in the trailer, hilarious fight scene. And he steals the baby. He goes back into the trailer to grab a book. The same book that Nick Cage stole from
is it
Arizona
like
family.
is it like How to Parent or something?
Yeah, something
How
about
to Parent for
raising a
Dummies
kid.
or something like that?
Yeah. It's written by Dr. Spock.
Dr. Spock?
That's what it says on the front cover.
Okay.
Very big letters, it says Dr. Spock.
Okay.
It's like Dr. Spock's Guide to Raising a Kid. Or
Okay.
Do you know who played Spock in Star Trek?
Leonard Nimoy. Leonard.
So maybe Hi and Ed, when they finally decide on a name, remember that in the whole movie they say that they haven't really figured out a
They
name.
haven't figured out a name.
They say, actually, it's funny because Hi says, at one point to Glenn, he says, "Oh, it's Ed Jr." And then Glenn says, "Oh, isn't he a boy, though?" Which is hilarious because Ed is like,
right.
Gender or whatever. But like,
It's usually a boy's
usually
name.
a boy's name, right?
Yeah.
But obviously, that was funny. And then usually, though, it's they say it's Hi Jr. That's what
Yeah,
Ed
well,
says.
Ed says it's Hi Jr. and Hi says it's Ed Jr.
Yeah, and then sometimes it's just Junior, right? But they're clearly haven't decided on a name. But maybe that book helps them raise a
Inspired
kid.
by Spock.
And if they are helped to raise a kid by a book, maybe Spock is on the mind.
Yep.
And they're trying to
But
think
why isn't he Leonard McDonough? Isn't it Hi McDonough?
Well,
McDonough?
maybe it is, but he doesn't want to go back and he doesn't want to tell everyone my name
so
is
he's just
McDonough.
And maybe he just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm so big, but I'll call myself
I'm hilarious.
small. he
But
just wanted to make himself laugh.
that's right.
So Leonard, Dr. Spock, they're inspired by, all right, I buy it.
That's right. And so I know I have one more piece of evidence somewhere, but to be honest, I think I've already made my case pretty well. So
All right, so the biker is actually Nathan Jr. from the future. Now, here's an interesting thing. At the end of the movie, they show Nathan Jr. as like a football star.
pretty big
Right.
guy.
He is a pretty big guy. So that's like the positive version of the future where he's actually raised by the Arizonas.
That's right. He still gets big, right?
He
He still gets big.
He's not small anymore.
He's not small.
Yeah. All right. So that explains the tattoo. I like the flames from the motorcycle. That explains the time travel a little bit. And yeah, I mean, hey, if you want to read a version of what we just talked about,
it's
go
too
to
long,
Letterboxd.
but
well, maybe people will like it. I don't know.
That's true.
This podcast is long.
This podcast is long. Yeah, no, definitely recommend reading it. But I think, the fact that people call him an outlaw, I think is really I think that's really what made me think about it the most at the beginning. And yeah, so I'm not gonna die on this hill, but I do think there's something interesting there that if you watch this movie again soon, which you should, go into it with this lens of, is Leonard Smalls really from the future, and is he Nathan Jr.?
Mm. Yeah, I mean that's a fun fan theory. I like it. Well, overall, I mean, Raising Arizona, great movie.
Great movie. Fantastic. 4.5.
I also gave it 4.5.
Yeah.
I mean, all right, we're gonna have to find a time where we disagree about something. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Well,
I guess we disagree about the fan theory slightly. I don't buy it. I'm not hook, line, and sinker for the fan theory, but
I should say this is interesting because in both these movies I proposed a fan theory to varying levels of detail. I wouldn't say that I'm usually gonna. I wouldn't say I'm usually watching a movie looking out for the theory that comes after it.
Right.
But, also, these two movies just happen to have great built-in theories. So.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I mean, do we have any last thoughts on Raising Arizona? I mean, I think it's. I mean, I've seen it several times now. I think it's probably one of the Coen brothers' better movies. One of their best comedies for sure.
Yeah. I think that's all I got.
I'm a big Coen brothers fan, so I always enjoy their movies. Even the weaker ones are usually still decent.
Yeah, that's all I got for Raising Arizona. I think it's a great movie. I think last time I watched it, I gave it 4 stars on Letterboxd. This time it's going up. I think it also kind of like Great Lebowski in a way. Big Lebowski. Probably benefits from rewatches, especially if you think about my theory. Rewatch it. Yeah, great movie. Both these movies. I mean, we really made it easy for ourselves.
Yeah,
on our first
week.
I
think we make good choices. And so, you think Adaptation is Nick Cage's best performance?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a lot of Nick Cage movies now.
Yeah.
Too many.
I was wondering if there was some sort of a top 10 or a top 5 Nick Cage performances, the most crucial to understanding Nick Cage.
That's interesting. I can go to my Nick Cage list.
Yes, I was going to do the same thing because I think, and maybe not just the best, but maybe the most representative of his range, because his performances are all over the place. Oh my God. And obviously, we talked a lot about Charlie Kaufman and the Coen brothers, but this is a Nick Cage episode at the end of the day.
That's right. It is.
So
I've got Face Off really high on my list.
That is definitely iconic. That was a big hit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely an influential Cage movie.
10 years after Raising Arizona. I think it shows some of his depth. I don't know if it's really the best Cage role, but he plays John Cusack's character. John Travolta, sorry.
Yeah, John Travolta.
John Travolta's character. Really well in that movie. Kind of funny.
That is a crazy movie. I have to rewatch Face Off. It's insane.
I've got that up there.
I mean, I have my list here.
Yeah.
I have Adaptation and Raising Arizona as my 2 favorite Nick Cage movies.
Ooh.
Those are my top 2. Right up there also, I really love Dream Scenario from last year. I thought that was great. Also Mandy and Bad Lieutenant, which I like. You don't like Bad Lieutenant as much, but I like that.
See, we disagree on that.
And then Wild at Heart is also a good one. But I think Vampire's Kiss would have to be in my crucial Cage performances. Just
must-watch Cage movies.
I think that's his best bad performance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, most entertaining and ridiculous of his terrible performances.
Yeah, I mean, there's some scenes from that movie that...
Insane.
I don't think you could ever forget.
Doesn't he run through the streets saying, I'm a vampire?
I'm a vampire.
He's wearing fake vampire teeth.
The fucking goofy Spirit Halloween ones.
My God, the alphabetizing.
Yeah.
He chases that poor lady around the office.
Yikes.
Just a truly insane performance.
I think some of the ones I'd have to give for to see the full Cage story. some of these are going to be hot takes, but you've already said a lot of the best ones.
Right.
So, in effort not to repeat, also, Face Off, Color Out of Space.
I haven't seen that one yet.
I would recommend it. It's kind of a Vampire's Kiss adjacent performance. It's
Really?
not quite that level. Not that is way overhyping it, to be honest. Don't go
Okay.
into it thinking.
All right.
But
It's a good movie though, right?
it's a good movie.
That's what I've heard.
And it's got some good Cage. Not a lot of Cage,
Okay.
but good Cage. Massive Talent.
Oh yeah.
Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent
I haven't seen that one either.
it's a movie about Nick Cage, so
Plays himself.
he plays himself pretty well.
Yep.
I have Con Air pretty high on my list. Another weird, unique Cage performance. And the last two that I'll mention just as like other good ones to watch to see some of Cage's range is Willy's Wonderland. Which
I watched that. That was horrible.
yeah, it's a bad movie. I don't think you should. I'm not saying you should watch this movie, but I'm saying
Does he even speak in that
he
one?
never says a word.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend that one. I can't. That one stunk.
It's a bad movie, but
That was horrible.
he does the like deadpan thing pretty well.
Yeah, but I feel like he does kind of a like you could just watch Mandy. You don't have to watch.
I haven't seen
Willy's-
Mandy, actually.
Well, that's your
Yeah.
problem. You've seen Willy's Wonderland, but you haven't seen Mandy.
It's a
Mandy is kind of similar, or even Pig. Pig is
Pig,
kind of a similar.
I did like Pig. Yeah.
Deadpan, like quiet
a
character.
much better movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
The last one I'll say is Prisoners of the Ghostland.
Oh yeah, that one looked insane.
That one, he's got some. He's wearing a suit that has bombs strapped in some places I would not want to bomb.
Yeah, I should watch that one actually.
Yeah, it's a pretty good Cage performance.
I would say also one of his better supporting performances is Kick-Ass.
Yeah,
He's
that's
really
right.
good in Kick-Ass as sort of a Batman
Yeah.
parody almost. That movie, I'm not really a big Matthew Vaughn guy usually. Like I kind of don't like those like what the Kingsman movies.
Yeah.
Not my favorite. But I remember really liking Kick-Ass, and
The movie kind of kicks ass.
it kind of does kick ass. But yeah, I think Adaptation and Raising Arizona have to be in his most iconic performances. And
Oh, yeah.
I think maybe Vampire's Kiss, and then maybe throw in Wild at Heart is pretty good. Wild at
I've
Heart.
seen Wild.
It's David Lynch. He's got a jacket. I forget exactly the quote, but it's a very iconic quote. It's pretty good. I wish I knew it off the top of my head. I could say it right now. It'd be funny. Be good podcast material, but I don't know it.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway,
we're new at this.
I guess that's that. I guess is that for
Those are
Nick
the
Cage
movies.
topic?
Yeah. Nick Cage. Watch more Nick Cage. Nick Cage November is coming up.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Watch some Nick Cage movies in November.
Yeah. If you're looking for rewatches, Raising Arizona and Adaptation are certainly, now you've listened about them, about our thoughts about them. Think
great.
about it. Was Donald real? Was
Was the biker actually Nathan
was
Jr.?
the biker actually Nathan Jr. from the future?
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna feel pressured to come up with these theories every time. They're gonna be bad.
Yeah, you have to keep with the theories.
Well, it is probably about time for us to do our last bit here, which is, of course, we've got our little bin full of. If you're watching, you can kind of see it's full of papers. These little
We had an
papers-
idea for the title of calling this the genre generator.
Yeah, John.
But it doesn't really flow off the tongue.
No, I thought it was.
The more I say it, the more I dislike it, to be
Yeah,
honest.
the first time that we came up with this idea on a walk when we were going to
Yeah.
get dinner, and we were like, "Whoa, wait, that's kind of good."
Yeah.
And the more I've thought about it and said it, it does not.
It doesn't
work.
roll off the tongue at all.
I'd rather be saying
I think
the word
'cause it's-
geriatric, which is not a good.
I think because genre is like a J sound,
Yeah.
but then generate. Well,
it's
that's
not
kind of
well.
genre. I just don't like it.
Yeah,
Either way, it's just a cup now.
yeah. It's a
We
cup.
have a cup full of paper, and it has a bunch of words on them, and we're gonna pull one at random.
Yeah. So each one of these has a little. It could
Oh my
be
God.
a topic. It could be all sorts.
Did you see what one you just pulled?
That was. I'm not even messing around.
We
I'm just.
have a
showing
whole
some
Excel
examples.
spreadsheet with all of these topics written, and we have some bombs for ourselves. We're
Yes.
gonna have to.
Yeah.
It might
Some of
be
these
a-
are gonna be stinkers.
Yes.
Undeniable.
Some of them we're gonna have to pick some good movies.
Oh, yeah.
So the whole idea is we're gonna pick the topic, Also, I don't know if we can hear over the papers.
Oh, good point.
It is a
Yes.
podcast.
Sorry, I'm shuffling the papers.
Yeah, we're shuffling the papers. But that's all right. First
First
episode.
They're fine.
So we're going to pick a topic, and then during the end of episode 1, we're going to choose our movies for episode 2. So if anyone's watching and liked this for some reason, they can come back for episode 2 and watch the movies we're going to watch, and you'll be prepared for our next discussion.
Yes. And yes, you'll be able to, like we said, find us on Letterboxd. You'll find us, hopefully, anywhere that you can find your podcasts, or on YouTube, hopefully, if all this works out.
Yep.
And comment on our YouTube videos with some of your thoughts about some of these movies. But let's go ahead and pull our next genre, and we'll try to decide on some movies.
Who does the honors?
You want to do the honors?
Sure.
First pick. I kind of shuffled these, so I feel like I shouldn't be the one to pull.
That's fair. That would be cheating. You definitely pull a To Be Original just to fuck with me.
What do you get?
Ooh, we have debut features.
Debut features.
Here, we'll show the evidence to the camera.
That's
which is
never
not
gonna
on
work.
focus. But trust us, it says that.
Debut features.
Debut features. So, we're talking about the first movie
of a director?
I don't know. Did I put that in there, or did you put that on there?
I might have put it in there. If I put it in, I was probably thinking director.
Yeah, but we could also...
anything.
It could be an actor, it could be anyone.
Anything.
This is a very broad topic.
It is. And you know what? We should mention, it's like end of September. October's coming up.
We could do a horror
I could
theme.
we don't have to, but...
We could look for that, though.
Yeah. I mean, I think of... I don't know if I'm going to pick this, but one incredible debut movie, Johnny Depp first appeared in Nightmare on Elm Street.
That is a good
fantastic
debut.
October movie, good debut movie. I'm going to look around a little bit here, but that's like one of the things that comes to my mind.
I might already have a choice.
Oh, shoot.
I went to my Letterboxd.
Uh-huh.
I went to my favorite directors, and I knew this off the top of my head, but my favorite director is David Lynch, and maybe my favorite movie of his is his debut, Eraserhead.
Ooh.
I don't think you've ever seen Eraserhead.
I haven't.
It's a completely batshit insane movie. He made it over like 5 years while he was at the AFI Conservatory, so it's kind of a student film.
Okay.
It's a surreal, trip down the anxieties of fatherhood and living. It's a completely insane movie. It's actually kind of hilarious. I think it's kind of a dark comedy also. It kind of fits the horror theme a little bit.
Okay.
There is some horror elements, and it's one of my favorite movies, and so I think that could be up there for me.
Well, shit, if you're doing one of your favorite movies and I'm trying to think of, maybe I'll just stick with my first thought. Maybe we'll do Nightmare on Elm Street to go with it.
That could be an option. Yeah, we could do anything.
Gives us kind of a
I don't know.
horror
I'm like, now I feel like I'm like, do I need to check more options?
Well, you know what? Let's spend a minute. We can each think a bit, but these sound like pretty good options.
Those are pretty good. I've also seen both of them, so this will be another one of rewatching.
And these are both movies that I'm sure will be good.
Yeah,
like
true. And a lot of times, like a debut feature from a director, like it's kind of you see where they're going, but it might not be necessarily the polished, finished project.
Right.
I will say we covered the Coen brothers. Their debut feature is Blood Simple. That's a really great movie.
Very different from Raising Arizona.
Yeah. More of a drama thriller.
Yeah.
Not really much comedy to it, but a great movie. I actually just got the Blu-ray for that.
Ooh.
After I was looking. I don't know. I just buy too many Blu-rays. I don't know why I do that, but but yeah. It is interesting. Like Charlie Kaufman, I guess you could do his debut as a writer or as a director.
That's right.
You could kind of do whatever.
Yeah, and thinking of of actors, Nick Cage was his debut Fairmont High. Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah. I don't know. Does he even have a line?
Does that even count? I know that
tough.
He slaps a sticky note on someone's back that says something derogatory to gay people, which was crazy.
Does he do that? I don't remember that.
I think in that movie he slaps a a sticky note on someone's back that says, like, I'm homo or something.
Like, kick me, I'm gay or something.
Yeah. And that's like one of the only times you see him like 2 times, like not 2 times. You see him like 5 times maybe at most in the movie.
Yeah.
And that's like everyone's walking into the high school and you see him just quickly do that.
Yeah.
And I snagged a screenshot of it because I was like, watching Nick Cage do that in his first ever movie might be the most unexpected thing I would have expected.
Who would have thought?
Nick Cage.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking. I mean, Orson Welles, his first movie is Citizen Kane, but I don't know that. I don't know. I want to tackle Citizen Kane on the second episode. Like, I mean, that might be a little crazy.
No,
it's a great movie. I do love Citizen Kane, but I mean, I think Eraserhead might be a little bit more approachable. You know, Tim Burton, his first movie is Pee-wee's Big Adventure. That would be a good one. I like Tim Burton.
We could do
no comment from Ryan. He's had a bad run, but he had a run in the 80s and 90s of great movies. A bunch of them.
Yeah.
So many.
Yeah.
Edward Scissorhands, Ed Wood. They're great.
Do you know the director Jamila Marie? Jamila Marie?
I don't know. I've never heard that.
Director debut. You've seen it actually before.
I've seen the movie?
Yeah.
I've seen this lady's first movie?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
It's this movie called Dark Trésor.
It's hardly a movie.
It's hardly a movie.
So,
I'm not actually picking that.
Okay.
Although...
well, we were... Back in the day, we went on Letterboxd, and we're trying to look for a movie that had 0 views. No one had ever logged it, or rated it, or anything. And we found this movie called Dark Trésor on Tubi. And it's some random independent movie.
Yeah.
And, you know, we watched it.
We watched it.
We watched it.
Whatever you were about to say was going to be generous.
We watched it. Yeah, it was all right.
It was definitely...
It was all right. It's no Edward Scissorhands.
It was a thing we watched.
I'll say it was worse than anything Tim Burton's done.
That's true.
And that's kind of a low bar. Like, Alice in Wonderland? Really? But yeah, I mean, I think Eraserhead's a pretty good pick for me. I'm looking at... A lot of people will have some sort of a weird debut feature, you know, some small little thing that maybe doesn't necessarily work, even though their later stuff is a lot better. So I think Eraserhead really... I mean, I don't know that it's Lynch's best movie. You could argue it's Blue Velvet or Mulholland Drive or just Twin Peaks in general, maybe, but Eraserhead's pretty great. And you've never seen it, so that'd be true. A good way to get you to watch it.
I gotta see. So Shyamalan's directorial debut, Praying with Anger, I don't think is going to be available to find.
Yeah, I think that's a hard one to find.
Yeah,
because everyone, at least when I think of him, I'm like, oh yeah, Sixth Sense, obviously, but he made like 2 movies before The Sixth Sense. But I don't even think they're like. I don't even know if they're streaming anymore.
No, I'm looking now. I don't even think you can rent it online.
Yeah. Well, we do have an M. Night Shyamalan topic in there, so
that's right.
We have our opportunity.
We have plenty
to
of
talk
time.
About Shyamalan, yeah.
Plenty of time.
Yeah.
Well,
I will say in the beginning recent watches section, I recently watched The Visit for the first time because it's getting to be Halloween season. I'd never seen it. I was like, it's one of the last Shyamalan movies I haven't seen. Could not recommend that. I did not like it, and I like. The recent Shyamalan, I like old, and I like Knock at the Cabin. So I'm not some hater. But The Visit, I could not recommend. A lot of 13-year-old white boy rapping in that movie. Way more than I could have ever expected. And then it happens at the end. The whole credits. It's insane. It's truly...
amazing.
Well, that's one way to put it. Well, are you going with Nightmare on Elm Street? I like it. It's really Johnny Depp's debut, I believe.
Yeah, and it's a pretty good debut, too.
It is. I believe in the opening credits it says, like, introducing Johnny Depp.
Yes, it does. You're right.
So, I mean, it introduces him. We're introduced to Johnny Depp.
That's true. The other option that I've kind of locked in on while browsing here for a minute is either that or Leprechaun, because it introduces Jennifer Aniston.
Oh.
Although, I've rewatched Leprechaun more recently, And
It's not as good as...
It's not as good.
Yeah.
And I watch Nightmare on Elm Street every year, so I'm going to watch it this year anyways.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So...
You might as well pick it. Nightmare on Elm Street's so much better than
so much
Leprechaun.
Better. Leprechaun is not... It's fun. It can be fun.
Leprechaun in space was pretty good.
Yeah.
But besides that, it's like...
If you're drinking, Leprechaun can be fun.
Yeah.
More of a St. Patty's Day movie.
It is an Irish movie. I'm Irish, I can say it.
Shane said that.
I'm Irish, I can say it. It's legal. It's allowed.
All right, so next week, or next episode, we'll be planning on...
If you go to Johnny Depp's IMDb, literally Nightmare on Elm Street is the very first one. Not
Amazing.
a single thing.
Not
before.
even like a small thing.
So I like
Great.
it. I like that. Those
I like
are our
that too.
picks.
Nightmare on Elm
Eraserhead
Street
and Nightmare on Elm Street. And that's a good Halloween theme.
Slap.
That's a good Halloween.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about, how much we want to emphasize our genre generator and how much we want to kind of lean in to do specific episodes like Halloween and things like that. And I think this is good. I think we just we can narrow in on a season if we want to. Or
yeah, we kind of just naturally did it. We were thinking of just doing like a horror theme for episode 2 just to get the Halloween vibe, but then we're not doing our topic, our whole gimmick.
Thing. That's our whole thing.
It's
the only reason anyone's gonna.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the topic, who's gonna watch this?
Who would watch?
You watch us talk about movies for 2 hours,
so you can see the 1 minute of us pulling a topic.
I'll tell you what. By the time we're on episode 100, this thing will be 5-hour-long episodes. It'll be crazy. It'll be longer than the movies we watch.
Yeah, we did have a particularly. We picked these 2 movies. I had a particularly strong. What I'm saying is, Raising Arizona. I have a lot to talk about. Listen,
yes, yeah. We had plenty to talk about.
I could host a TED Talk about.
Yeah, I will say these 2 we're going to have a lot to talk about.
Oh yeah,
I think they're Eraserhead has a lot going on, and Nightmare on Elm Street is very iconic and influential.
Yeah.
So,
and the practical effects.
Yeah,
I'm sure on both of them actually.
Oh yeah, the practical effects in Eraserhead are there's actually one practical effect. No one knows how it was done.
Whoa, what?
For real?
They had to kill the guy. Right when he does it,
it's actually
boom.
It's potentially some kind of carcass involved.
Oh.
Potentially. Allegedly. We don't know. No one knows except David Lynch.
Well, that'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if I can figure out.
He did all the effects on Eraserhead himself.
What?
And he was making Dune, and he was like, I'm going to do all the effects myself. And they were like, you can't do that. That's insane. It's Dune. And he was like, what are you talking about? Like, this is how I do it. And then he tried it for like a day, and he was like, this is insane. I can't do this. So then someone else did it. But it's just hilarious that he tried.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's that.
That's that. Yeah. Follow us wherever you watch your podcasts. Follow us on YouTube if you like that stuff. Comment on our Letterboxd reviews whenever you want to.
Yeah.
Again, that's...
comment on the YouTube also. Can't really comment on podcasts, but you can leave a review.
Yeah.
Give us a little 5 stars, if you like.
Yeah, and we'll try to find some way maybe where it's a little bit easier for y'all to communicate with us about the movies that we're watching. So that way, we'll brainstorm something.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Cool.
Well, that's that.
That's that.
Signing off.
See you next time.